try to do this video in many ways, and you have to permit me. I am here with a sheet of paper in case you see me looking down. Welcome. I went into a little study on the cocoa plant. I know some people call it cocoa. Maybe the right pronunciation is cocoa, but we are Nigerians, and so I will call it like my mother tongue has placed it in the tip of my tongue to call it. So I'll say cocoa, but I will write the pronunciation. I will write it here for better understanding. The cocoa is a plant that we are supposed to be finding. We are supposed to find easily here in Nigeria because it's one of the plants that is predominantly found here in the part of the continent, in the part of here in the world. But we don't really put a lot of interest in it, and it will be correct if one says that cocoa in Nigeria is gradually dying off. And I say this to say that I went on a search for cocoa pod, for the cocoa itself, while I was about to do this, because I needed to get my hands on an actual cocoa pod, so that I will do the other process, or I will do the processes that will come after this sit down. But it was difficult for me to find. And that took me all the way into a certain level of shock that I was like, okay, because I know cocoa is supposed to be around this time of the year. Growing up, I had a neighbor, Mama Onyeka to be precise. We grew up around this lovely lady. We would always go to this particular one single cocoa tree behind her house, and she will always shout at us and chew us off. Children, kids, the care was just massive. Every morning she would water it. She wouldn't let you go around it, and it was just standing on its own there. I remember once in a while it would produce a pod, but we were not really that much interested. And that brings me to say that here in Nigeria, it seems as if having a cocoa plant, having a cocoa tree, it's like a one man, one one tree behind one house kind of situation. But then in places like Ghana and some other countries, because cocoa is not just found in Nigeria, cocoa can be found in Ghana. In fact, Ghana is known for its exportation of cocoa. It's one of their cash crops and all of that. And as should be here in Nigeria, mana uchanya deria. Our mind know today the cocoa side. Yes, like I was saying, there's Ghana as a country that has cocoa. There's Ecuador, there's Cote d'Ivoire, and if there are other countries, I will also put it up here. But these are the ones that are predominantly known for cocoa, for wider production of cocoa. And here in Nigeria, we concern ourselves with the much more easier plants, like the pineapple plantation. You see plenty of it here. You see the, where are they? The palm tree plantation, you see cashew plantation, you see I've mentioned pineapple, you see plantain plantation, banana plantation. Like these ones are easier to maintain. Banana self, if you plant it, you go and rest, it will keep coming up on its own, and then all you need is to keep the walkways free, and to keep so that it does not stunt the growth, it does not all gather at a place, so that the plants will be free and all of that. Trees that can easily, plants that can easily do well without too much, without you looking after them too much. But the cocoa has a lot of, serene around it, and that has become a good part to it and also a bad part. With what I have written down here, the cocoa, like we know, the ones we see here in Nigeria, they are yellow in color when they are fully ripe. When they are coming up, they are green, and in some countries you will see the red cocoa, reddish cocoa, and very good to look at. Yeah, especially because the pod, has the pod is this thick, fleshy substance that it's hard to break into. And so the cocoa is a very interesting plant. Presently, like I said earlier, I am studying cocoa, and the things I have seen, the things I have learned about this superfood, they are very, very, that is okwa. Like I said while I was starting this video, it should be every man one plant behind his backyard. I mean, I think if we all have one cocoa tree behind our backyard, we will save ourselves a lot of headache, because the the tree on its own, yes, even though it has a lot of serene, but it is not a tree that you cannot control if you have just one plant. Cocoa is a lot of work. If you go into it, if you go into cocoa tree farming and have it as a cocoa plantation, that is where you have challenges, because there are not many mechanized ways right now as we speak to help farmers. The very little ways that have been put in place to help farmers, they are not that keen to embrace these new ways of farming, and that becomes a challenge also. We will get into all of that, but right now let's look into other things that make the cocoa tree impossible. Like, why are we not looking into these three? So here in Nigeria, it is no news that our government, the economy of the country, relies heavily on the crude oil. But if we may look away a little bit from the crude and look into agriculture, I think we will do ourselves a lot of advantage. We will be tapping into another gold mine that has not been tapped into. So I think I should mention at this point that I have tried to make this video in so many forms. I have tried to come in here, sit down, and maybe start out with a song, but I was not particularly intrigued by my voice, because in that singing area, count me out. And then I came in with drawings, and then my drawings were not so bad but not so good at the same time. My message was completely lost. Either way, I came in to introduce this topic. And so I know that it may sound a bit boring sitting down to talk you through what cocoa plant is, which cocoa tree, what it did, what it did not do. I promise you will be intrigued by what the capabilities of what the cocoa that we neglect has. These capabilities go into so many things that can help the human body. Remember, I said it's a serene type of tree, and that on its own discourages a lot of people from going into cocoa tree planting, cocoa tree farming. The tree on its own takes about 3 months. The plant on its own takes about 3 months to germinate, and when it does, it takes even longer, as much as 4 years, 3 years, 2 years to come to maturity and then to start bringing pods. The cocoa pods are not yet ready to harvest immediately they start podding. You have to wait for another 4, 5, 6 months depending for it to change from green. Remember, when the pod starts coming out, especially for the species we have here in Nigeria, it comes as green, and then you have to wait about 4, 5, 6 months for it to turn to yellow. So that's a lot for a farmer who is waiting to sell off these crops and get his money and start the process all over again. So in places like Ghana, the government is heavily involved in all things cocoa plantation, cocoa selling, cocoa farmers, anything that has to do with cocoa and its production. The government is heavily involved. They go as far as helping the farmers. But hold that thought. Much later in this video, we will delve a little bit into this cocoa production and the government influence in Ghana. A key factor that every cocoa farmer puts into consideration each time is the usage of pesticides. Cocoa trees are always disturbed by pests. You can imagine when you have suffered to wait on this plant to look after it for such a long time, and then you are battling with pesticide. You are battling with not just pests, rodents, and then insects. Cocoa needs serene. It needs attention. For every cocoa farmer, the pesticide, having a good pesticide is a key factor for helping you maintain a good harvest, a good crop. Cocoa has been found to be attacked by from different fungal diseases, pod rot. You can also talk about rodents. Yes, rodents. You can also talk about insect infestations. For example, the true bugs, the mealybugs, the pod borer, and so many more. So much so that when a plant is affected so much, the farmer knows that at the long run, this tree may probably not produce any pod. And so you find him uprooting a plant, a tree that he has waited so long to plant. If you are still here, thank you once again. Give me a thumbs up. Let's continue. What I've said so far is common knowledge. Yeah,
making this
I know.
video cumbersome, I will be taking you through the very first step, preparatory steps to what you need to do with your cocoa pod. How to take it from these little brown babies to anything I have decided to make them into. The process is not that difficult, and you'll be surprised to know that the chocolate is not the only thing you can make from these. Follow me on this one and you will see the mystery, will I say substance, my own mystery end product that I will be using subsequently in my channel for the salad factory. On how to prepare your natural cocoa. I just have one. This is the first part of another video to come. I just want to carry us through on how to make this. So first off, I'm doing this on the ground. I don't want to use knife, so I'm doing it on the floor to open it up. It's ripe already, as you can see. So I have used calendar on the floor to protect it from. So that's how it will look like. Hey.